In this video, you will learn zero-based budgeting definition, zero-based budgeting process, zero-based budgeting advantages or disadvantages, zero-based budgeting requirements, zero-based budgeting application, zero-based budgeting examples. Let me explain everything one by one. Zero-based budgeting, also called ZBB, is the process of creating a budget from nothing without using the prior year's budget or spending numbers. No activities are assumed to be untouchable. All expenses are judged and must be justified in order to remain in the budget. In other way to explain this concept, under zero-based budget, managers are required to justify all budgeted expenditures, not just changes in the budget from previous year. The baseline is zero rather than last year's budget. There are a few different steps in zero-based budgeting to keep in mind. The process of zero-based budgeting follows the same basic steps. 1. Identify business goals. 2. Develop and analyze new ways to achieve goals. 3. Discover new ways to fund business processes. 4. Prioritize funds. Zero-based budgeting has lot of advantages. I will discuss few one here. 1. Efficient allocation of resources, as it is based on needs and benefits. 2. This approach drives managers to find cost-effective ways to improve activities. 3. It is useful for service departments because criteria are not always easy to identify. 4. This approach increases the communication and coordination within the organization about certain decisions. 5. This approach identifies and eliminates wastage and out-of-date operations. There are also disadvantages to the application of zero-based budgeting. Time-consuming. Sometimes the necessary expenditures are hard to define for managers, as a result of which it becomes too time-consuming and exhaustive a process to arrive at a solid foundation with respect to the decision-making about the investment. Another disadvantage of zero-based budgeting is requires knowledge. In order to apply this approach appropriately, it is necessary to train managers well. For zero-based budgeting to be successfully implemented, managers at all levels of the organization must understand how zero-based budgeting works in the organization, as they are ultimately responsible for the management, decision-making and the communication of entire process. Requires manpower. This approach forces staff, especially managers, to justify every detail related to the expenditures. For instance, because the R&D department cannot completely underpin their intended innovation, this could have advantages for the budgeting of another department because they are able to justify their expenditures in great detail. Zero-based budgeting requirements. This financial management approach requires much documentation and justification. In addition to the total budget, the manager responsible must identify all expected expenditures and rank all of the activities according to their relevant importance and costs. The persons ultimately responsible, high-level managers, can make decisions about investments and budget cuts that can be justified at all times based on their supporting information and no immediate pre-financing, as is the case in the traditional manner of budgeting. Zero-based budgeting application. This type of budgeting usually occurs in the government and non-profit sectors. The philosophy behind zero-based budgeting is good. However, it should be noted that zero-based budgeting requires frequent reviews. In zero-based budgeting, reviews are carried every year on account of the fact that it is a time-consuming and costly process. Interim reviews can be carried out, but that is the organization's choice with respect to time and priority. Let's say you run a hair salon and sell shampoo and conditioner to customers. Last year, you purchased these products from another company for $30,000. You decide to use zero-based budgeting for the upcoming year. As you're listing expenses, you realize you can make your own hair products for cheaper than the supplier's price. Making your own products will save you $22,000. When creating your zero-based budget, you would only mark $8,000, $30,000 less $22,000, as the expense budget for the beauty products. You also realize that you can cut back on advertisements. Instead of spending $10,000 in this example of zero-based budgeting, you only need to spend $3,000. You would mark $3,000 for advertisements. It's your turn. What do you think? Is the zero-based budgeting costing method applicable in today's modern companies? Do you recognize the practical explanation, or do you have more suggestions? What are your success factors for a good zero-based budgeting costing setup? Share your experience and knowledge in the comments box below. If you liked this video, then please subscribe to Accounting Plus. Thank you.